I want to share my experience when it comes to racism and sexism, transphobia, and all the bigotry that you can imagine. I was raised in an area where I encountered a fair bit of it. I could see it. People were raised in it to somewhat normalize a lot of the hatred for humanity, where it's culturally ingrained to some degree or another. And I started to, from an early age, I'm not entirely sure why, but just maybe by luck, I started to recognize that this is unfair. It's not right. It's not moral. It's not kind. It's not compassionate. It's not empathetic. It's wrong. And I started to recognize early that I could blend into that kind of white supremacist society. I could, at any given moment, blend in. And yet, so many people that I know and don't know would not have that luxury to blend in, to simply just live their lives unaccosted. Because instead, they would be targeted by people who are effectively lesser versions of what they could be. Because they were in an environment, likely raised since birth, to justify targeted cruelty of people that are not like them. All in service of allowing powerful people to take advantage of them by convincing themselves of this fantastical idea that because of just who they are better. It's not true. People that cling to bigotry, in whatever form it takes, doesn't matter. They cling to this because it gives them a desperate sense of security. It's a blanket. It's a worry stone that they can always fall back onto to remind themselves that they matter. And they judge themselves based upon people underneath them. Bigotry, it relies on its bullying mentality. It is a childish, emotionally stunted view of the world. And by engaging in it, by justifying it, by normalizing it, you make yourself lesser in the process. The hate and the fear, it takes from you. It eats away everything until there is nothing left. Because it will come for you too. The ultimate tragedy of evil is it leads to its own downfall. Every time. Kindness and compassion, it will persist throughout all the cruelty that whatever this last gasp of white supremacy can throw at us. The kindness will persist, and the cruelty will be its own undoing. And since I have the luxury of being able to blend into this environment, and I wouldn't necessarily be targeted by it aside from my own personal beliefs now, I have the luxury of looking at this situation with serene acceptance. Because ultimately, the type of threat that I would face is different from a lot of other people in this kind of environment, and I recognize that. But I also recognize that it's an opportunity for me and other people like me to stand up and speak on this. Now is the time to share experiences of recognizing how we've been taught to hate all in service of empowering other people who hate all of us. White, black, trans, gay, it does not matter. I have a strong conviction that humans, no matter where they're at, are fundamentally the same. The experience that I have is the same experience that another person could very well have. I don't recognize the differences that a lot of other people cling to that gives them this sense of separation, not just from themselves and their outside environment, but the sense of separation that they have towards other people. That way of looking at the world it's fear. It's fear driven by ignorance. And it's an ignorance born out of an unwillingness to change, to grow, to progress, to become more than what you were the day before. And I can see the world in a fair few years from now where this last gasp of white supremacy winds up being its own undoing. And most of our world can begin to heal. And also to recognize where that kind of hatred and how it perpetuates. And to find it in every place, pull it out by the roots, and recognize it for what it is. It is a divisive mental disorder that humans fall into because they are exploited by their fear and ignorance. And I have a higher expectation for the people that are sowing this kind of animosity. I expect them to become better. And if they refuse, they will be their own undoing.